Hey everyone, Cursed Deck Builder here, making our way to 10,000 decks assisted, and right now we're looking at Preston, the Vanisher, a mono-white blink deck. This deck comes to us from Mr. B, and I'm suspicious that the B in Mr. B stands for bunny, maybe? Something to think about. They would like improved winning power and speed, and that's all they wrote. They said for the budget that they'd like to keep it under $50 a card. Absolutely, we're gonna see what we can do. But I think it's helpful to remind all of our viewers and people who send their deck lists that the more you tell me about the deck, the more that I can kind of help. I've got some pretty generic, powerful suggestions here to help the deck, but you know, it always helps to know what the meta is, how you find the deck playing, you know, just your feelings and ideas on the matter. But for now, we're going to take a look at Preston the Vanisher and see the deck that has been built. As always, this deck list will be found in the video description down below, and I highly recommend you go and open it on your own time, or right now, or pause the video, or do it while you listen to me talk. Mono White Blink is a very fun archetype that you don't see very much because usually we dip into other colors, and this is a very good start at a very fun Mono White Blink deck. And therefore, I think you'd be very happy taking a look at this deck and using it to kind of figure out what direction you're going in. And while you're in the video description down below, you can see the link to the Google form sheet where you can put in your own deck so that I can go look at your deck and make a video about it. There is also a link down there to bring your deck to the front of the queue so that the next video I make is your deck. All right, with all of that out of the way, and with one quick note for myself, who is Preston the Vanisher and why are we using them as our Blink commander? Well, Preston the Vanisher is clearly some kind of magician. They've got a hat that they seem to be pulling something out of. I think the joke is, you know, rabbit out of a hat. They are a 4-mana white rabbit wizard, 2/5, which is actually a really good stat line for a creature like this, who says whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except for it's a 0/1 white illusion. And then for 1 and a white, if you sacrifice 5 illusions, you can exile target non-land permanent. So we're generally playing Preston for that first ability. And what they do is that whenever we blink a creature, we just get another copy, which is kind of cool. I think something else that's kind of cool is if other people's effects give us tokens, such as Generous Gift, Beast Within, any form of, you know, give someone a hasty creature, we will get a 0/1 copy of it as well, which can be good or can be bad depending on what that card does, but it is worth considering. So think of it in the way that this card isn't a part of the Blink package. It is neither the Blinker nor the Blink-E, if you may, but it just accentuates the Blink. Every time you do a Blink, this just makes it better. So this is a card that powers up the deck in and of itself. So let's take a look at what we got. And we have, obviously, nice mono white, a pretty straightforward deck that I do generally like quite a bit. If we look at the curve is kind of stuck at 3, but this is pretty normal in a Blink deck because a lot of our really good cards are at 3 mana, and in fact, I'm going to suggest another one. We do kind of dawdle down to 7 with Combat Thresher, but Combat Thresher is actually a 3-mana card most of the time, so we won't count it over there. And our 1/6 mana card is the Eternal Wanderer, who has a Blink effect attached to her, and therefore that's why she's there. So we have quite a bit of creatures, and we're kind of low on lands. I think I wouldn't mind if we went up 1 or 2 lands. Just 1 or 2 extra planes would make a little bit of a difference. And I would definitely probably cut Temple of the False God if we're not getting closer to 40 lands. It's kind of tough to get this online with only 34 lands. So there is a lot of situations where it's going to be a dead card. So the next thing we'll look at before looking at individual things is something I really like to do, is to look at the cards that exist on the same mana cost as our commander, right? Preston the Vanisher is 4 mana, so let's take a look at the cards that compete with them at 4 mana. Something that's really worth considering is the fact that Preston kind of works a little opposite to what we usually have. They are not the enabler, they are the one that kind of benefits from the flickering happening. So let's take a look at the order of those cards. So like Fedalar Guardian and Restoration Angel will never be cast after, like at the same turn as Preston. Like you're not going to have 8 mana. What you want is either Preston on the battlefield, or you want to cast these cards anyways because it very much behooves you to do so. Just something to consider. So the ones that kind of stick out to me here are Mondrak, Nesting Dovehawk, and Phyrexian Vindicator. With Phyrexian Vindicator, I think just does not belong in this deck. I think it's here just to prevent, you know, like, how do I put this? I guess Blasphemous Act, where you can then do 13 damage to something. I don't think, like, I get it. It is interesting, especially if you make multiple copies of Phyrexian Vindicator and then you are Blasphemous Act proof. But I gotta wonder, how many times do you get Blasphemous Acted that it's really that much of a worry for you that you want to put out a bunch of Vindicators, you know, out as a defensive kind of group? Don't get me wrong, the Vindicator is plenty strong and it is cool to have multiple copies of it, but I just don't really think this is what the deck wants. It doesn't have an enter the battlefield effect and is very susceptible to board clears, so I would definitely cut the Vindicator. Nesting Dovehawk is kind of very win more. This is something that I've been meaning to make a video on, but it's kind of been put on the side for a little bit, where we have a card that is only strong when you're already doing the thing, right? And that card that's only strong when you're doing the thing is our commander, actually. And this card is only good when we're doing the thing and our commander is out. Do you see the amount of hoops that we need for Nesting Dovehawk to be good? Like, it only populates our creature tokens, even which we don't have a lot that are really, really good. And those creature tokens we want to populate are our commander, and our commander will only make the creature tokens if we're already blinking creatures. You see the chain? I don't think this card is very, very good. I think I would be the first to cut it. So Nesting Dovehawk is a very easy cut. Mondrak is really, really close. Mondrak just has a little more utility to it because it has the ability to be indestructible, but it's so close that I'm really, really keen on cutting it. I don't like it here. It just doesn't do enough right now. It does make non-creature tokens, and it does need, like... The thing is, what's different is Nesting Dovehawk can be played after the fact, but Mondrak needs to be played before the fact. So for both of these cards, I just want to cut it. I think I get why Mondrak is just such a good card in a lot of decks, but this is one of those cards that here, it just doesn't belong. It just kind of clashes too much with the idea of the deck and the mana cost that you're going to be particularly happy just to cut it. Against All Odds is interesting. I do like it, so I'm not going to cut it. I like the fact that basically it's a 2-for-1, which can trigger other 2-for-1s. I do like that. It is a little clunky, but I'm not going to be too mad about it, so I'm going to say keep it. Lazelle's Acrobatics is really, really strong. I have no problem here. Parharmonicon is really, really good in the deck, obviously. We're very happy. And Teleportation Circle, is also very, very good. So the rest of it are pretty solid. I want to go over a few other cards that kind of stick out to me. Inquisitor Exarch feels really, really, really weak here. Like incredibly weak. It doesn't even it doesn't even hurt all your opponents, just one of them. I think this is pretty easy just to completely cut from the deck. After that, let's see. There's a few others that I saw. And I can't seem to remember them now. Let's see. Oh yes, Idyllic Tutor. Idyllic Tutor kind of sticks out at me as kind of a strange inclusion. And the reason of that is that, let's really think about it. What does this card tutor? It tutors Teleportation Circle. That's all it does, right? You can say, curse, touch the spirit realm. But like, no, you're tutoring teleportation circle. You're not paying 3 mana to tutor touch the spirit realm. That's not happening. You're using it to get teleportation circle. And at the moment, that doesn't feel worth it. It doesn't feel worth it to have 1 card to find 1 other card when it's 3 mana and, you know, sorcery speed. Like if this was Enlightened Tutor, maybe I would look the other way. But as it stands now, it seems far too weak. There's just going to be situations where you draw this and you don't have 7 mana, so you have 2 turns to set up Teleportation Circle, which is a lot of work. Or you draw this after drawing Teleportation Circle, and all of a sudden, you know, you've got a dead card in your deck, unless you're going to use it to tutor for Touch the Spirit Realm, which you're probably not going to do. And finally, I think even just literally, if you use Idyllic Tutor, grab Teleportation Circle, play Teleportation Circle, and then someone nature claims it, they just got 1 mana for 7 mana, right? Or they got 7 of your mana played for 1 of their mana, and that just feels really, really bad. All in all, I just don't think this is exactly where the card wants to be, the deck wants to be, and I think I cut that pretty easily. Likewise, Paradise Mantle just kind of sticks out at me as a card that I just don't really, it's not ramp, right? It kind of is, but it's like really clumsy. Like you have to pay 1, attach it to a creature, after which you have to not blink that creature. And then finally, you have to tap that creature, I would say at least 3 times for mana before this is worth it, right? And I just don't see this particularly being worth it. There is a few kind of interesting almost combos here. We have Ashnod's Altar, we have Eldrazi Displacer, and then we need 1 more card, and I'm trying to figure out, what we need is a creature that makes 2 tokens, which I guess the token doublers do that, as in Mondrak or Parharmonicon does, but this is so you do have an infinite combo with Ashnod's Altar, so I do like that a lot more. I think it's really, really strong in this deck when you use it like that. And I think the rest is fine. I think the rest is generally fine. I think there's a few cuts you can make based on which cards you want to keep and which cards you want to get rid of. But I'm going to go into my additions first, and then I'm going to leave it to you to decide which cards you want to switch in and out. So the theming of my cards, except for 1, okay, maybe, except for 2, is finishing the game, or our big, you know, our cards that kind of propel us forward. A lot of our cards here kind of just nudge us in the right direction, right? We can blink Wall of Omens. We can use Fedalar, Guardian to blink like Lorn of the Third Path to destroy something else. Mage's Attendant gets us a token each time, which is kind of neat. Kind of cool cards, but these cards don't finish the game. So I'm going to go into cards that finish the game, but before that, let's talk about 2 utility cards that I think are worth playing. Yes, it's Thraben Inspector, a card I just generally like. You're in mono white, you have a limitation of the amount of card draw you can actually get. And you have a limit on the number of 1-drops you have. Thraben Inspector is just really, really nice as a generic blink target that you can use when you have cards that blink your whole team, or cards where you want to blink something and you don't have anything that's really worth blinking. Thraben Inspector is there for you. Yes, those clues are not free to crack, but you will get into situations where you will have mana and no cards, and you will be happy that you have them. I think it's just a good card, generally in white, in any form of blink or reanimation, and this is really, really good here. Likewise, Knight of the White Orchid is also a very, very good card. As long as you are not the first player, that first trigger is free. After that, you just need a friend playing green, and you're going to have as many planes as you can shake a stick at. Obviously, in blink strategies, Knight of the White Orchid is just very, very good, but also just generally a very good card that you're very happy to play. All right, those are the boring ones out of the way. Well, this next one could be considered boring, but let's go into cards that start finishing the game. Blade Splicer, I did say before we have a lot of 3-mana cards, but this is the only 3-mana card that I'm suggesting, and Blade Splicer is pretty good here. Do not underestimate the power of 3/3s with First Strike. Every time you blink Blade Splicer, you have another creature on board that you care about, and this is a target that is very, very good to create an illusion of with your commander. Namely, because this is generating way, way more. It generates its own token on entry, and you don't really care about that 0/1, whether it sticks around or not. You just want it for that ETB. So with your commander out, every blink is actually 3 tokens, with 2 of them being 3/3s is the one you really care about, but still being particularly good. And I think you'll just be generally happy with this as creating you a fodder that you're pretty happy with just turn after turn, just attacking one of your opponents with. It's kind of a play it and forget it kind of creature. Well, don't forget it, blink it, but you know, you don't need to invest your energy into it. This also, I guess with your commander, I can't believe I didn't realize this. Ashnod's Altar and Eldrazi Displacer and your commander with the target is technically, I think, all you need. With a creature that creates another token. Okay, I think that's pretty straightforward. Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on to the stuff that I think is pretty strong. Gandalf the White is one that I think just kind of is the strangest out of them, but I wanted to suggest it anyways. It is a flash creature that gives legendary spells and artifact spells flash. Now, you don't have a lot of artifacts you want to flash, but you do have a few more legendary spells than you would expect, which I do kind of like. It gives your commander flash, which I kind of like, but the main reason we're doing this is for the ETB here, flicker here. Sorry, the doubler, where legendary permanents or artifacts entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability. It will double that ability. Now, you might say, well, there aren't a lot of those here. You know, Luron is one of them. You know, Guraline doesn't even have an ETB. What are you talking about, Cursed? Well, I have... Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I was looking at the legendary creature I was about to suggest, and I thought, oh, wait, that doesn't work. Okay, let's not talk about Gandalf the White. I was off base here. And instead, let's talk about Abdel Adrian, Gorian's ward. Abdel Adrian's whole thing is that when he ETBs, he exiles a bunch of your permanents to make one, exiles a bunch of permanents, and then when he creates the 1/1s when they are exiled, and then when he leaves, he returns those permanents to the battlefield. What this is, in a very, very strong way, is kind of a, how do I put this? It is a weird token doubler, ETB doubler. When Abdel Adrian comes into play, you get a bunch of cards kind of tucked away. Now, when you blink this one creature, you actually blink all of those creatures, which is really, really strong. Abdel Adrian looks at your cards like Flicker Wisp or Guardian of Gurapur and says, okay, what if this blinked every creature you wanted to? And I think that's a very, very strong card. The amount of creatures he spits out too isn't nothing. It's a bunch of 1/1s, but it does add up really quickly, where if you get a few flickers in a row, you can go from like 0/1/1s to 5 to 10 really, really quickly, and that does become a force that's worth reckoning with. So I really like Abdel Adrian. I think this is good. This isn't a game closer, but these next two are both not game closers, but I think there's something worth considering about them. Cavalier of Dawn destroys permanent. Basically, what it does is it generous gifts things, except it doesn't destroy lands, which is a little unfortunate, but it is a really strong effect. Now, Cavalier of Dawn's second effect is a dies effect, not a leaves play effect, so blinking doesn't work as well, but I think I'd be generally happy to be able to just destroy permanents that your opponents control and turn them into 3/3 golems. There's also something worth considering that when this comes in, you can also destroy your own permanents. There's a few cards, like a few of the 0/1 illusions that you make, you might not want to keep, and you can just turn them into 3/3s. It's not ideal, but it's something worth considering. Generally though, if you can Beast Within or Generous Gift your opponent's commander, your opponent's enchantments, their planeswalkers, you're going to be very, very happy with that trade. And obviously Cavalier of Dawn, goes against those 3/3s really nicely. Another one that just feels like very strong in this deck to kind of enable it is Defiler of Faith. Now this doesn't have anything to do with enter the battlefield effects at all, but it does make your entire deck 1 mana cheaper, which is really, really nice. And it creates tokens every time you cast a spell. But that's not the real reason I really like it. The real reason I really like it is that once you flicker this with your commander out and you have 2 copies of this, this card becomes incredibly powerful. All your 2 mana spells, like your 2 pip spells, go down substantially in mana cost. And some of them become free. Not many. I think Exarch is out and Knight of the White Orchid is the only one that's free, but it's still something worth considering. The other thing that's a lot stronger, though, is that it says every time you cast a white permanent spell, you're now going to get 2 soldiers, which can go up to 3 soldiers, and so on and so forth, and you're going to have a lot of success with that. Likewise, Defiler of Faith works really, really well with Ashnod's Altar because they kind of complement each other, as one of them will get rid of the white mana symbols, and the other one will get rid of the colorless or the generic mana symbols, making spells free in certain scenarios. This also applies to Pearl Medallion, so that's pretty good too. So I do think Defiler is a really nice, kind of support card in a deck like this. All right, a card that works as a finisher is Sun Titan. Now, Sun Titan doesn't hit really hard, but its ability to just reanimate a lot of the creatures that you want is really, really good. And it is one of those triggers that works really, really well with your commander and with Ashnod's Altar, where you can just get into really, really interesting loops when you don't have infinite mana. I'm momentarily thinking of if I'm doing this right. Where you can sacrifice your smaller creatures, then blink this, get back that smaller creature, get back another Sun Titan to get, and with that trigger on the stack, you sacrifice that smaller creature again and use the other Sun Titan, the illusion, to bring it back again. It's a little tricky, but you get into some really cool, variety in the kinds of things you can do with Sun Titan, and it's just generically a good card. There used to be a day where this was a $10 card. I can't believe it's just 50 cents now, but it is a card that I tend to be I look at sideways. A lot of the Titans I'm very, very critical of, but you're in a Blink deck. Sun Titan is just exactly where you want to be, so I would definitely consider it here. But let's get to the real good cards. We have 2 here. They're the same lady. You know who she is. It is Elesh Norn. Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines, is just so good in a deck like this. I don't even think I need to explain it. If you ever get tired of playing your commander as your commander, you can just sub Elesh Norn instead, and you will have basically the same deck, I would say, in a lot of ways. And Elesh Norn is just so strong. Mother of Machines, being able to shut down all of your opponent's ETBs while doubling yours is just such an aggressive power. And look at all the beautiful art that you have to choose between. I think this one's my favorite. If you are listening to me for your for art choices, I'd say pick this one. What fantastic art. Dominic Mayer has really blown it. All the Phyrexians just blow my mind how good they look. So this card to me is a win condition. You play this and all of a sudden, all of the value you're getting from your blinks skyrockets, and your opponents can do nothing but just watch as you do whatever you like for the rest of the game. Likewise, another version of our favorite lady is Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite. Now, this is, in a lot of ways, generally my go-to finisher in white. There's probably just a lot of better options when you think of different ways to win, but Elesh, like really specific strategies, but Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite is just, she's just good. Her -2/-2 ability is so relevant in so many boards, where not only will shrink creatures down to a manageable level, it'll kill tokens, it'll kill little creatures, but also what she does is she turns off so many creatures in your opponent's hands where they just can't play them anymore, where they're just dead cards. And that is something I feel is underappreciated, because there's this thing that I may not have talked about it before, but it's thinking about cards and thinking about the unknown unknowns. Like, you don't know this because you don't have access to your opponent's hand, but you might like play Elish Norn and she never kills a creature. Like, the board was already too big or already too empty for her ability to really matter. And then 4 or 5 turns go by and somehow you don't win and Elish Norn is removed from play and you go, well, she didn't even kill anything. Well, the thing you might not know is how many cards in your opponent's hand she stopped them from playing. And because of that, it can be tricky to kind of understand exactly her power. But the other thing that makes her obviously a very good win condition is the fact that she is an anthem for your entire board. +2/+2 is kind of the rate where I start caring about anthems. I'm not a very big fan of +1/+1, but +2/+2, man, that's when things start getting good. And turning those 0/1s into 2/3s makes them at least respectable enough to attack. And it makes all of your other creatures that are already respectable into actual beaters, and it is just such a good card. I think this is exactly what you want to use to finish the deck. Otherwise, I think we can generally talk about the idea. Oh, you do have Unlightning Tutor. Yeah, exactly. Don't play Idyllic Tutor. But, oh my goodness, absolutely don't play them both. Yeah, play Enlightening Tutor. Don't play Idyllic Tutor. Sorry, I've distracted myself. So, talking about this deck and talking about the other thing you said is to speed it up. And there's not really much else we can do to do that. Unless you want to put, like, you know, fast mana into the deck where 0 mana, you know, like, what is it, Mana Vault or the other one, Chrome Mox and all those things. But don't do that. Don't do that. That's not going to make the deck better. It's just going to make the deck clumsier, where sometimes you're going to get into really good starts, but then not have enough white mana to keep going. So don't do that. Instead, you just kind of have to accept that there's a bit of a speed ceiling here. You're in mono white. You don't have green to ramp you mana. You don't have fast mana from red. Like, there is just going to be a limit on how fast you can go. But if you are playing out your deck, you know, with a 1-drop like Throbbing Inspector, to Wall of Omens, to, like, you know, blinking something with Flicker Wisp to your commander, and then you untap and you have the ability to kind of double blink something, I think you're already going to be in a really good position. However, if your opponents are coming in and they're playing like really powerful decks with really strong combos and really strong interaction, then this deck might just kind of eventually be pushed out of the meta because it is in one color and it does have some limitations, and you just have to be kind of realistic about that. That being said, I do really like the deck. I think it's really strong. To kind of sum up my thoughts on it, there's a few 4-mana cards that I think could be cut, a few cards like Idyllic Tutor that I've mentioned that can be cut as well, and I'd like to add in just a few utility cards and then some bigger cards to just give you board presence and inevitability that can really help this deck finish the game that it starts, you know, close up. Halo Fountain. Why is this card so popular? I don't really understand it. I feel like it's really hard to get this going. I guess the fact that you can untap two tapped creatures to draw a card feels strong, but I just don't see it. If I had my way, I would cut this as well, but at this point, I'll leave it to you. So I hope this video was helpful to you. I think Preston the Vanisher is a lot of fun, and if you want to make another draft of this, I'd love to see it. If you want to, within the video description down below, you'll find the form to send me another draft of this deck or any deck. And if you want that draft to be the next deck I make a video about, there is a link down there to bring it to the front of the queue. As always, if you'd like to like, comment, subscribe, do the whole YouTube thing, I would be very grateful. It is very helpful for the channel, and I'm just very appreciative if you do so. I like this deck. I think it's really fun. I've recently been back on a blink kick with Atraxa, 4-color blink, and I've realized that blinking is just so much fun. It is really powerful. You might make some enemies instead of friends, but you know, it is a really strong thing that that white can do, even by itself, and that it's absolutely worth building a deck around. All right, good luck.